let's talk about the attack surfaces themselves. Let's get in a little bit more into the weeds, figure out what's going on and how we address these things. So, common attack vectors. I'm just going to run through these really quickly. Vulnerabilities, compromised credentials, weak passwords, malicious employees, misconfigured devices, phishing, ransomware, poor encryption, vendor trust relationships, in other words, remote access, those kind of things, DDoS attacks, right? We didn't do anything, we just exist and they attack us. Unpatched and unpredictable zero-day vulnerabilities. We didn't know about that particular thing was vulnerable until somebody found out. The worst thing that happens when you talk about those is somebody announces the vulnerability. They're trying to help. The problem is that guess what the attackers do? The second somebody announces is when we see a huge spike in attacks coming from that. Why? Because, well, the attackers who didn't know about it now do, or the ones that do know they have to act quickly before we patch. So two sides of that coin, and that really speaks to the first one as well, vulnerabilities. When we talk about the rest, we're going to go into a little bit more detail here and go into some of the things, but the worst of them here are when we things weak password and compromised credentials, one hand in hand, right? We recently heard about an attack where the bad guys brute forced 200,000 times to guess the user ID. And unfortunately, when they then got a user ID that was valid, the system reported that they had a wrong password. So then they tried 10 passwords before they got in. 10, meaning that they hadn't even finished the top 20 list. Yeah, that kind of thing is, and the reason that was there was because it was considered otherwise protected, and nobody had hit it before to their knowledge because they weren't monitoring it. They didn't know they could attack it.
Yeah, so it was in a trusted environment.
Environment deep inside that environment, and somebody was able to gain access through that environment to that device, and they were able to snoop around enough to do 200,000 attempts without detection. Well, we had several times we could have captured them in that methodology, and if we were monitoring any of it, we would have been able to report on it and stop it as it was happening before they got in, or the moment they got in, rather than after they encrypted all the devices, right? So it really, that's the chain of attack that we have to try and